Hello, folks, and welcome to episode 3 of the ATFA Talking Wood podcast. I have a very special guest today for you all, a legend in the industry, an immortal with the ATFA, a true blue Aussie, all-around great guy. Hello, Robert Clague, and welcome to ATFA Talking Wood.
Hi, Josh. How are you? That was a bit of an overwrap, mate.
No, it's great to have you here. You're one of the first guests I wanted on board this show, so I'm sure the contractors and people around Australia will be very interested to hear your story and your thoughts of the timber flooring industry over the next half an hour. So we're going to start off with the first question, just a pretty generic one, Rob. Just tell us a bit about yourself and how you got involved back as a little boy and where you're based.
I just turned my phone down too, eh?
Yeah, no.
Okay, tell a bit about myself. Well, not quite Tasmania, Josh, but actually grew up in Victoria. Moved up to Queensland around the 1980 with my then girlfriend, now wife. We come up, just a couple of young people looking for something else to do. Grew up in country towns.
And how old were you when you came up?
Oh, that would probably be pushing close on, I don't know, about 19, 20.
Right.
Not good with times, but
wanted the sun and warmer weather?
Yeah, that's it. No, naive enough just to go for the experience. That's all it really was.
Beautiful.
So, that was it. Come up here then. Needed work to survive. Were uneducated, unskilled, just doing several labouring jobs. Got a job floor sanding after a couple of other jobs, and really that's just where it started. It was just a job. I had no idea where I was going that morning when I started, and started up with a business over at Red Hill called Oscorp.
Okay.
Run by two well-known guys back then, Basil Fraser and Vince Anderson, and they happened to take on board Basil's brother-in-law. It was a gentleman by the name of Tony Olzak. Now, Tony Olzak had a brother called Barry Olzak.
Name rings a bell.
And that was when I first met Baz as well.
Right.
So Baz was one of the partners then. Business probably didn't go the way they wanted. So 12 months in, the employees were sort of left holding their own. They helped us a bit with a bit of equipment, and we went and found some more work.
Right. So just starting on that. So when you would just become a floor sander, you had no training. Did they just on-the-job training is how you learnt?
On-the-job training, mate. Out to the jobs in the back of old Basil's ute, and off you went, and you went in and we did the floors. We were sanding. Yep. Back then, I suppose it was all about floor sanding, cork tiles, a little bit of parquetry.
Yep.
And that's basically what the trade was back then. It was mostly floor sanding and cork and parquetry come into it a little bit as well.
Right. Okay. And so, and then what was the next stage after that kind of thing? Where did you move to?
Oh, what did we do then? So basically it was a fend for yourself. I had very little experience, and I suppose was bold enough to get some work, which I found some work for a couple of recognised companies around, and realised I was in over my head. So I rang my old mate Baz up and I said, Baz, I've got some work. I need help. Come and give us a hand. So he come and helped me on the weekend. And you might find this hard to believe, but when we finished, we went to the pub. Had a couple of beers. And
I'm a bit shocked with that one.
And Baz wasn't doing much at that time himself. So we formed a little handshake agreement over another 20 beers, and we were partners for about 5 years.
Right.
And we contracted to Cork Interiors, Queensland Parquetry, and we were contractors then, and we just, got all the work. We did a little bit of our own work, which we did after hours.
Yep.
So we worked really hard, and when we weren't working, we went back to where our first meeting place was and played there as well. And about 5 years later, we went our own ways. Barry retained the name of Oscorp, of Abcor.
Yep.
And I started up Northern Suburbs floor sanding, I think it was back then.
And what year were we talking here now?
Probably mid-'80s, Josh.
Right.
Yeah, a bit after that. I'm not sure what. Don't ask me on years. I can tell you
40 years ago.
Yeah, probably around 86, I
Okay.
suppose, 87, something like that. And yeah, look, the relationship has maintained since then.
Yeah, yeah. And then moving into, I guess, northern suburbs, you opened up there in Brendale. Obviously, that's been, you said 40 years. It's a successful business. You've obviously seen a lot of things change in that time. What was the challenges and I guess you've had the highlights in your time with your business?
Oh, look, wow, it just goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah,
Depends what day it is.
yeah,
Back then, the industry really wasn't an industry, Josh. It was more just some guys going out laying some floors or sanding floors.
yeah.
The timber flooring come into it really from us doing repairs to floors.
Right.
We didn't lay floors, or wasn't considered to lay back then, because builders laid all the floors. They were all platform floors.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just did repairs, and I suppose we're young enough and naive enough that you just have a crack. So if there was jobs that people wouldn't do, and a lot of the work being in those inner city suburbs, there was a lot of repairs, a lot of old borer floors, things like that. Builders didn't want to repair them. So again, you'd have a crack at doing the repairs, and then laying the odd floor would come into play. And then it sort of evolved from there.
So the best training was on the job training then, by the
That's
sounds of
all it was, mate. We didn't have ATFA back
No
then.
TAFE classes.
Hey?
No TAFE classes.
No.
Oh, beautiful. So moving forward, I guess you've been around now for a long time in the industry. What's the biggest change you've noticed in your time, would you say?
Oh, the change, I suppose, the biggest is it really being turned into an industry.
Right.
Where it now is a professional industry. Back then, I don't believe that we were considered to be professionals. We were unskilled, we were uneducated. It was just a job.
Yeah.
It wasn't until it became a little bit more professional with the involvement of associations. Pre-ATFA days, there was local associations,
Yep.
which were again just a group of good concerned tradies getting together and seeing what they could do with that. And again, pre-ATFA days, there was local state associations.
Yeah.
And it was another one that was getting around for probably 10 years prior, called the TFFAQ. So that was the Queensland-based one. Again, it was a strong little organisation because you had a lot of passion there. You had a lot of good people. And again, we used to have a bit of fun when we got together.
Yeah.
Again, naivety, you took on the industry challenges. There was, I remember when licensing first came out, this organisation called the BSA, QVCC was along, and first sign of Big Brother saying that we have to conform. Well, all trades were going to get licensed, but they had nowhere to put floor sanding or what we did. So they tacked us onto the end of painters, would you believe?
Right, okay.
And at that time, we realised that we needed to do something because they were starting to make the rules, and we knew that we didn't like what a lot of those changes were. One, the licensing, it was probably a 50-50 whether people wanted licensing or didn't want licensing.
Okay.
But if we were going to get licensed, we needed to get our own recognition.
Yes.
And that was very hard because it wasn't a recognised trade back then either. It was not a recognised trade. There was no real qualifications.
Right, okay.
And that was something then that was started to get pushed through on a local level. There was the state association, and there was this guy getting around that used to run I think they called it the furnishing industry ITAB.
Correct.
So they were involved with the training supposedly for our industry. So he got us tacked onto painters and our furnishing. You go to think, what in the hell have they got to do with us? Anyway, this guy was apparently responsible for the training of our industry. And so we got together talking with him, and again, knowing no idea what we were doing. But that guy also then helped us go to the BSA to get recognition in our own right. and
Okay.
also then get the industry recognised in its own right as a formal qualification.
Nationally, we're talking, or Queensland?
Look, back then it was more locally.
Okay.
Because that ITAB was a local organisation. He'd probably be able to confirm all this to you one day too, Josh, because it was Randy. So that's how far back that relationship goes as well. So he was instrumental way back then with helping us get licensed, and also to formalise it as a qualification or an apprenticeship in its own right.
Okay. And was that Queensland-based committee made up of manufacturers, contractors, and retail, or was it just the contractors?
Mostly contractors.
Yeah. Okay.
There was there was a lot of very good suppliers involved back then.
Yeah.
And again, the industry was a lot smaller. It was a lot closer. You knew everybody. So yeah, look, there was good guys. All mainly the coating companies. They were always good friendlies. Your Polycures, your Tobies, all those guys, and the names that have been around forever. The John McPhees, the Jeff Maloney's. They were all instrumental in that support way back in that early Queensland days.
Okay. And obviously, that now leads into a great segue into the next question. You're known as one of the founding fathers of the ATFA. So I guess, how did it start? You kind of gave us a little bit of a education of how you kind of got into meeting Randy, and then how hard was it to start an association?
How hard was it? It was incredibly hard, but again, you get a plan, you get an idea, and you just start bashing down the walls and going along with what you think's the right thing. That initial concept, as I say, there was state associations, and they were in most states, and there was a guy by the name of Colin Menday who still is in the game and works with Labor, and Cole's a terrific guy.
Yep.
He, back in the day, was working for Polycure, and they had the vision of trying to amalgamate all the states and create a national association. So I suppose that's probably where that initial vision really come from. So they, and again, there'll be plenty of people out there to correct me on all these details, because trust me, I'm flat out remembering yesterday, let alone 20 years ago. But they were instrumental in getting all the presidents of those state associations together.
Okay.
Get them into one room to try to get some national consensus going. Eventually, there was a general meeting. Memory serves me, was down at Sydney Airport. So anybody that was an interested party from all over the country flew into Sydney. The state leaders or the state presidents chaired that meeting and tried to get something going.
Right.
From there, I think the intention was right, but all of a sudden there's a he said, they said, I want, and all that garbage comes into it.
Yeah.
So we sort of left that meeting, and there was a couple of us quickly spoke that this needs a different direction.
Okay.
So we took off and found our own direction.
What we're talking 2003, 4-ish kind of times? Roughly? Association.
Yeah, look,
16 years now?
I don't know, mate. You'd probably have to check with Randy. It was probably even before that, because before ATFA was ATFA, there was a few years of other names and things. Timber Flooring Association of Australia and several things when we were trying to get it together. When that did happen, we managed to get a couple of the states on board, but not all the states. So it was still a little bit fragmented. And I think ATFA was born from the final agreement between the Timber Flooring Association of Australia and the couple of states that were still out there. And that's when the organisations were joined and formed ATFA. So I suppose it was just a meeting of minds and a coming together for the right reasons. And, there was quite a few instrumental people behind the scenes I mentioned Colin, of course. Cameron Luke was huge. Malcolm Johnston, who back then was with Boral. So there was a lot of guys that were instrumental initially, but then, of course, we had to try to get committees formed. So you put it out to the industry. There was a lot of people that got involved in the different committees.
Yep.
and boards. Some stayed, some went. I think a lot had a look to see what this was about. A lot were having a look to see if they could find agendas for themselves. A lot realised there was then no hidden agendas, so they were happy to let it run its course. But it was hard from that perspective because it was a continual fight of trying to prove that the organisation had integrity and that was not going to be compromised by anybody. And that was challenged and challenged and challenged again, but it was never compromised.
Beautiful. And as you were the inaugural president of the ATFA, did you put your hand up for that role? And you obviously would have come across all the challenges at the start, and you've just gone through a few. How did that kind of come to hand that you were the number one?
Look, I'm not sure why that was. I think we were together as a close unit.
Yep.
And I don't know. All I can probably say was, they probably thought they were better off having a dumbass contractor at the top rather than a corporate giant, mate. I'm not sure.
Well, you were around for 5 years, so you must have done a good job.
Well, we had a bit of work to do.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of work to do. And one thing just led to another and rolled into another and rolled into another. And with those organisations, if somebody wants you gone, they'll soon find a reason to get you out of there or form a pack behind the scenes to make that. So, obviously we were doing something right. Look, I might have been the chairman of that committee, but by then there was a lot of good people there, and there was a lot of good people there for the right reasons.
Yeah.
We also have to remember that even to this day, all the board members of ATFA are all volunteers. They all pay their own way, which still is an amazing feat, particularly when it is at that contractor level. To see the commitment, I know what it was for us back then, personally and to the business. Let alone to this day, it is still that way.
Right.
And even from the corporates, okay, they might get corporate support, but somebody's still got to have the belief and put up the money for that to happen. And look, some of those guys back then, there was nothing underhanded done, but they managed to find the ways to make things happen.
Yeah.
Bob from Hereford's, when we first went on to try to get Dave on, we didn't have enough full-time work for Dave, but we needed to outsource him somewhere. So Bob put his hand up. Mel from Boral, I got into trouble with this one previously too, but, Mel was instrumental at what he was able to either convince Boral to do or to get done behind the scenes for us.
Yeah.
And without guys like that, Errol from Timbermate, there was just too many of them, Josh, to even mention.
Yeah.
I don't want to start naming too many names. There'll be somebody that I will forget, but they were all in it for the right reasons, and it just went on from there.
Beautiful. No, so that leads on to the next side of things. Obviously, you were the inaugural president of the ATFA, but you've also been the lead ATFA installer trainer for the last 16 years. So tell us about your experience with the ATFA training schools that you created, some of the experiences. I know you enjoyed the practical side of things, and obviously, I guess we could say the bullshit side of these kind of things that probably annoyed you a little bit. But tell us about those experiences as being a trainer.
So, look, I didn't create them, of course. I suppose they were a follow-on from some US schools that were put on. That's where they were a copy of. So way back, I think it was 97 or something like that, might have been earlier. I think it was, again, Mel when he was at Boral. They had an affiliation with the US, and they invited some Americans out to do a training school because that's what they did over there. and they burst onto the scene, and us Muppets all lobbed down to Sydney, and a few come from other states, and we had the first school back then, and that was an eye opener for all of us. The eye opener to me from that was not the skill level of these guys, but the way that they were able to deliver in an unpretentious way to anybody.
Yeah.
Another level of training. They didn't talk down to anybody. They just showed everybody. They were hands-on, and of course that's when Christine Coates and Daniel Boone burst onto the scenes, and then getting to know those people and on how they operated the schools, and again the professionalism and uncompromising integrity and professionalism with those was taught to us.
Okay.
And probably the big thing there, Josh, was, again, those guys volunteered their time. They come out from the States, with no support. They come out just to have some fun.
Yeah.
And they taught us a couple of things. They taught us the importance of training. They taught us the importance of giving back. And that was the legacy that I suppose was left, that then gave us the ability to do the training here and also have a very good group of assistants developed and instructors developed here in Australia that allowed that to continue. And look, along the way, as the same we did with them, you've got to have a bit of fun at these things. And, it's about the ability of learning how to learn again rather than trying to teach anybody. Yeah. And look, mate, I haven't been on the tools for 100 years now, so I don't know why I'm an instructor at these things, but you didn't need to be, because you had the skill there in the classroom. It was about bringing the skill out of those guys to show you what they were doing. Yeah. So, apart from those relationships that connect back through the industry and continual learning from the students at these, and finding the common goals between instructing and what they're doing, what they need, what can be helped, what can be discussed, and find that mutual ground was very satisfying to all.
Fantastic. Was there major differences between when the Americans came out with their skill set and what Australians kind of did, and what we had to change, or what we had to get them to, I guess, change their ways and methods to Australian kind of timbers and anything like that?
Well, again, I think it was one of those things that worked both ways.
Yeah.
So we, it's the old thing, what can these Yanks teach us? We know. And, we also see that at the schools here. The first day, there's a lot of egos come into the room, no different to we did back in 97. But, you soon realise that you can learn from each other. So those guys were blown away about why we wanted to learn so much about how to stain floors and use oaks and all those different techniques, the sanding techniques that they do.
Yep.
When they were surprised when we had such natural beauty in our timber species here, which they didn't have the luxury of.
Correct.
So they couldn't work out, why would you want to stain these timbers? Or why would you want to stain when you've got all your natural timbers?
Yep.
And I think one of the biggest learns for those guys was one of the schools we did down in Melbourne. It was an advanced school, and they decided we were going to hand scrape a floor. The material that was provided was ironbark. And for a couple of days you had guys, some of the leading skill sets here in Australia, plus also the Yanks down on their hands and knees trying to hand scrape a floor with the density of ironbark when they're used to getting a rag, wetting a little bit of oak and scraping that away. So there was a lot to learn from everybody. But again, if nothing else, they taught us the ability to learn, the ability to continue to learn.
Yep. And the chemistry to have fun while you're doing it, teaching as well. I've seen that firsthand.
Absolutely. Those stories we tell another day.
That's right.
At Urethane Coatings, we are 100% Australian owned and manufactured. Oil-based, waterborne, and solvent-based floor and concrete coatings. Our flagship products, in the monothane and water coat systems range, reveal beautiful finishes, each and every time. Urethane Coatings, really looking the goods. Urethane Coatings, for all your timber and concrete coating needs. Visit us at www.urethanecoatings.com.au for more details.
Thanks to Urethane Coatings for sponsoring the podcast series. Let's now go back to Robert and his time with the ATFA as president, along with all the other roles he's had.
Looking back now as the former president, obviously ATFA lead trainer, is there anything that you might have just done different that you go, if I had my time again, that's the one thing, or you're very comfortable sleep at night of everything you've done was you'd do it all again?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's like anything in life. You don't really know what you're doing at the time, but you're doing what you think you should be doing at the time. And everybody was doing everything they could with the best intention.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a lot we would change, even with the luxury of hindsight.
Yeah.
We just had to go about it in a process and chip away at that process. And as you mentioned before, one of the questions was it difficult? It was extremely difficult.
Mm.
How do you fund this thing? How do you do everything about it? How do you get the support? How do you make it unquestionable? How do you make it uncompromising?
That's right.
All those things. So I don't think there'd be a lot we would change.
And you're still trying to obviously, earn a living with your own businesses as well. And that's everyone who was putting ATFA together at the same time, having to create an association in the background or in your after hours, it's obviously was tiring and stressful, because your jobs had to come first, and ATFA was second at the stage, but obviously the time consuming to put that together would have been enormous.
Look, it was, but you were seeing the result along the way.
Yeah.
Seeing this industry being created.
Yeah.
And, while a lot of people were probably put what they did on hold for a while,
yeah,
there was other people that were creating, making a most of this industry that was evolving. When I say an industry, it was really just a culmination of the coming together of all the product manufacturers and the contractors with timber flooring as such.
Yeah.
So, there was a lot of people were taking the advantage along the way, and without that, wouldn't have been able to get the growth and development also.
That's right. So looking at the ATFA now, could you ever imagine 16 years ago or 20 years ago, where it would be, the size it is now, and it's even covering Australasia now, not Australia kind of thing. Could you imagine that when you're putting it together?
No, probably didn't think that far ahead.
Yeah.
Although there was a very comprehensive plan developed by Randy, and that was even before he was employed. And again, like everything Randy does, probably half of us don't read half the garbage he puts out there, mate. It's too comprehensive.
Stuff too.
And it was, yeah. So it was. He probably could see that vision more than us. But even back then, when we look at the membership, we always had a high level of membership per capita of population, even compared to the US, I believe. And I think if you crunch the numbers today, you'd still find that that is up there. So am I surprised? The answer is no, because we had high numbers to start with, and the industry has taken a different path and totally changed with the involvement of so many new products, engineered floors, water-based coatings, waxes, oils. It's an evolving industry, and of course that's going to give us some growth, hopefully.
Yeah, and I guess one thing for our listeners, obviously from being part of ATFA, you've created lifelong friendships and business relationships that have been built through your involvement with the ATFA. I'm sure you can, agree with that.
Look, absolutely. Those business relationships, and more the friendships, are unquestionable, and they go back all that time. And business is easy when you've got friends as well. And if you look at your staff and your business relations the same, it does make it a lot easier place. I look around the country at where we travelled, what we did, and there is the connection with so many good people, and again, just way too many to mention. But you look at the time that some people have thrown into this organisation. You look at what Cameron has done.
Yeah.
He was the man crunching those numbers. He was unassuming behind the scenes, but he had all that. He was the one just continually watching those numbers, and every organisation needs that. You had the support of the Mals, the Collins, and everyone else. Mentioned Bob from Hereford.
Yeah.
Paul Kiley, who took over from me, like Paul was a volunteer, and you look at the amount of things that he has volunteered and given back to the industry.
Correct.
Lynn and Sam, unbelievable to this day what they still give. Johnny Hollis, one of the world's kindest guys and great people. Mate, I don't know, there's just too many of them. You look at our relationships with Christine and Daniel.
That's right.
And not only just them, but, if you go over to a convention in the States, you've got plenty of friends over there.
Yeah.
And you've got of course I've got Baz always behind the scenes. Everyone knows what Baz is like, but same thing with the schools. With those schools, there were so many things that had to be done. Some people got it, some people didn't. Some people did what they thought was the right thing, but there was always something you could rely on. Would be Baz behind the scenes. If we needed something done, he was out the back there toiling away to get it done.
Yeah.
And as you say, we had a ton of fun.
Definitely.
Because we were taught by Daniel to go and work hard, go and play hard, but make sure you come back the next day and work hard again.
Yeah.
And we also had Christine there making sure that we didn't stuff up. Or if we did go and play hard, that there was no way in this world any of us were game enough to not perform to our best on that day under some quite enduring circumstances. But we got there. And the local ones were much the same. I think we had a ton of fun at them, and that's a good thing for all of us.
That's right, and that's what I try to explain to our younger members that are coming on board to the association. It is a big family in ways, and you can create lifelong friendships. You just need to open yourself up and participate at a few events and do the networking events that we offer, and you won't regret it. And some people don't want to do that, and that's fine. But if they open themselves up to those opportunities, it can open up the whole new world for them too in the industry.
Well, absolutely, Josh, and it's no different to what I said initially when we went down to Sydney. We thought we knew a fair bit, but we got there and we realised we didn't know as much as we thought we did.
Correct.
So again, once you're taught that ability to learn, so look, don't be scared. Don't be intimidated by you're going to see these people that have got this much industry experience. A lot of these young guys have got as much and not more knowledge than we have. Because they're dealing with that cold face all
That's right.
day, and the new products and having to learn to adapt. So look, it's a two-way thing. So yeah,
and don't be intimidated to ask questions either. There's no dumb question. Yeah, that's right.
No, I don't know of an ATFA instructor that's ever found a bad question, because we're still asking the dumb ones ourselves every day.
That's right. Changing a little bit of tact. So moving forward to 2020 now, how have you seen the COVID-19 kind of pandemic affecting the industry from your perspective in Queensland?
How's it affected the industry? I suppose it's a little bit like a lot of things personally for everybody. There's been a bit of segregation, the lack of connect. People change the ways they do things and adapt to what's put in front of us, like we all have had with COVID.
Yeah.
So I think the concern of, not a concern, but I just hope people don't forget about that connect with ATFA. And I hope ATFA doesn't forget how to reconnect everybody back together again, and not just on a virtual level or an e-commerce level, but face-to-face. That's what it's about. That's what we've got to get back to.
Correct.
Get back to see your mates, meet some new people, and have some fun.
Yeah, good answer.
But I also think it's, we don't want to say that it's been good for business, but the construction industry is on a high. From whatever reasons that has happened, it has happened. So again, we have to adapt for that, and that probably is a good place for us all to be in for the next period.
Have you seen many supply issues yourselves in Brisbane?
not so much for our industry, but from a building perspective,
Yeah.
it really is hitting home. And I think there's a little bit of apathy there. You know, everybody was warned about this, but nobody really did anything about it or thought it would affect them.
Correct.
But, you know, there's a consequence to everything, and everybody is now affected. What we're seeing as a business is very difficult for us to get the work out, not just from lack of supply with labour, but a lack of product to the builders is slowing the building projects down. So while there might be more work on the board, there's no more people doing that work. So that's a potential risk for us going forward.
It's about bringing apprenticeships through. It's finding the kids.
Well, how do we do that, mate?
That's right. That's right.
How do we do that?
We're all trying to find that answer at the moment, but small steps. But that's the next biggest thing I think that for our industry and concern in Australia in general is finding the kids, bringing them through, the young ones, and getting them trained up correctly. So,
and then look, that goes back to, you know, to any contractor out there. You know, you can't expect a kid to come in and know what you know, but you know, everyone's also got a bit of an obligation to put a little bit of something back. And if everybody could put back a little bit of training, get a kid, bring them on, keep them by their side, teach them what you were taught back when you knew nothing. And just remember those times of who taught you. You didn't wake up one day and become an expert floor sander or floor layer. You know, think back to the people who were instrumental in bringing you through and give a little bit more back, because without it, we will all complain about the quality of labour out there, whether they be full-time or contract, but unless we do something about it as a collective, we've got nothing to bitch about in 12 months' time if we're going to make that statement.
That's right, well said. So leading to the next kind of area, the timber flooring, you know, where do you see it currently going, and what future trends do you think we might see? You know, we've seen a lot change in the last 10 years. What's your vision? What's your thoughts on it?
I'm trying not to have too much of a vision going forward these days. I'm trying to go out the other way. But look, I think the vision is for me personally is just really consolidation.
Yeah.
Look at what we've got. Look at where we've come from. Remember what we've forgotten. And still look at what's happening around us. I think, you know, the times have changed so much in the last, you know, 50 years they changed, then the next 20 changed more, the next 10, the next 5, the next 2.
Yeah.
Who could have had this conversation 12 months ago and decided would be at this point that we're at now? It wasn't even a possibility for anybody to consider that or think that. So where's it going to go in the future? You know, we're nearly at Easter now. That's the milestone.
Yep.
Let's look forward to make a prediction of where we'll be by the end of the financial year, and then we can look again to about October and again till Christmas.
Yeah.
But if we look too much further ahead than that, I think we're going to get caught out.
Yeah.
The trends. Well, I think product's going to evolve a lot more. As an industry, we've got to be very careful of the introduction of too much crap into the game, cheap, inferior products. As a quality industry, we need to be dealing with quality products, quality companies, quality people, and that has to be that consistency. Supply, yes, it is real. Resource for the timber industry is very, very real, and they're very concerned about that. But look, there's some big players there that will evolve and develop products continually for us.
Yes.
But as an industry, we need to embrace those quality products and make sure that we help them find successful ways and systems of getting them down onto the floor.
Yeah, beautiful. And so, last couple of questions for you, Rob. So I know you're involved in some charities. So if you'd like to tell the listeners about your charity, and what other hobbies do you have when you're not involved in business?
Apart from drinking beer with Baz, we're heavily involved in Variety. It's a children's charity. Yep. Variety's a national charity. They do several key events. They have a corporate side and an event side. They do things like a jet trek, four-wheel drive experience, and they do a lot of people would have heard would be the bash.
Yes.
Where they get a heap of people and they go and get cars that are over 30 years old, and they take off around different parts of the country and have a ton of fun and raise money for the kids. But not only along the way are you having a ton of fun, you're also getting to experience where that money goes. You get to see a lot of the things that how simple things to us in the big smoke are such a struggle for people out in the bush, in the country towns. You see how complex now bureaucracy is here for us. It is a nightmare, as we know, let alone the complexity of these issues for people out there. So being able to get out there and see the way variety can cut through the crap and get rid of some of the bullshit red tape and get what these kids deserve is pretty special. So me and Baz now have done 14 bashes consecutively.
Fantastic.
So we've got a 66 Galaxy. And we spend all year getting it ready and spend a couple of weeks making a mess of the thing. Nowhere we won't take it or drive it, and we have a good time. We get away. There's usually a couple of hundred people that go on these events, up to 300-400 people, over 100 cars.
Fantastic.
And again, it's just a nice leveler. It's a little bit like ATFA.
Yep.
You know, when we're all in the room at ATFA, you know, there's no one that's any different or needs to be any special than anyone else. And this event is the biggest leveler in life I've ever been involved in. And it doesn't matter whether you got 2 cents or whether you got $20 in your pocket or whether you got a couple of million in your pocket.
Yeah.
You're all the same on this event, and you all treat each other as an equal, and you're having fun doing it for the right reasons and out there to help the kids. So that's that little part. Apart from that, of course, me enjoying myself with that and what we've spoke about with ATFA.
Yeah.
Nothing's more important to me as it is to everyone as family.
Yeah.
So, you know, my wife has endured all the stuff that I've gone through in the industry and been there in full support. My 2 kids, Tamika and Kane, are now involved in the business as well.
Fantastic.
Now have always been.
Yeah.
Never anything that was planned, but it is the case. So family business, and you know, that's not without its complexities also. But you know, that's very, very important to me, more important than anything else.
Excellent.
So,
and that leads me to my last question, Rob. What's next in the timber flooring industry for Robert Clague? What's the next thing?
in the timber flooring industry?
Yeah. Apart from retirement.
Apart from retirement, look, not a lot. We've not a lot really. To me now, I'm done. Like, let's get real. I'm done. We both got the same hairstyles, Josh, but yours is by choice. Mine's not. Look, I shouldn't say I'm done. I'm still very active, very passionate. You know, just because I was here at 5 o'clock this morning, I'm not sure I'll leave somewhere this afternoon, and that'll be a decision of mine now. So it's a little bit easier now than it used to be. As I say, the kids are doing a good job, but for me, it's really consolidating the business. NS Timber Flooring will go on. The next legacy is here. The next generation is here to evolve on.
Fantastic.
We've also opened up another little showroom in town with another business. That's quite exciting, mostly to do with some high-end engineered floors. So, you know, that's something to poke around with on the side. And well, that'll pretty well be me done, I think. If I can slip out the back door, I will.
Yeah, excellent. Rob, I want to thank you for giving up your time today and telling the members and the listeners, you know, a bit of your life story and obviously how ATFA started. You are a true legend of the industry. You're an honoured member of the ATFA. Mate, I want to thank you for everything you've done for me personally since I've come on as a staff member. You've been a voice of reason when I've had questions, and you just are a true legend of the industry. So thanks for your time today, Rob.
Thank you, Josh. And again, thanks to everyone at ATFA. And it is a wonderful organisation. I'm not just saying that because I was involved. Randy and you guys as staff, it's a great team and doing a great job. And of course, we haven't even mentioned Dave yet.
That's right.
The whole industry, none of this stuff would have been here without Dave. We go right back to the schools. Talk about the training. Who do you think writes all the programs and everything?
Yeah.
So,
Dave's
the man.
That's it. Thanks for that, Rob. Appreciate it. Cheers, buddy.
Good on ya.
Bye.
See ya.
All right, I hope you all enjoyed today's ATFA podcast, guys. We'll have a new one coming to you very soon, so please, for the time being, stay safe, and a final word from our sponsor for today.
Urethane Coatings, for all your timber and concrete coating needs. Visit us at www.urethanecoatings.com.au for more details.